Hello there, Hero Club. I am Wheelchair21, editor-in-chief, founder of the website, and we have another cool interview today. This one is probably a curveball to most of our audience because mostly, we do voice actors. We talk to producers and directors. This time we're actually talking to a suit performer and actor, Kurt Carley, who is probably best known for working on the 98 Godzilla film as actually the suit performer for when they did more of the practical stunts for the Godzilla Gino or Zilla, whatever you prefer to call him, because people have that terminology. He performed as Zilla for a lot of the physical stuff, from what I recall. You said in a previous interview it was building destruction when they had to do digging, when they couldn't use the proper maquette, and then they would like overlay CG, if I recall, in one of your interviews that you shared with me. Is that correct?
Pretty close. Yeah. They maybe added a little CG in some things, but to be honest with you, I haven't seen the movie in a few years. I'd have to. Should be a good opportunity for me to go back and check it out.
All right. And other than that, with Godzilla, he's been a performer in 2 of the Underworld films. He was also in the. Oh, you were in 3? Okay, because I checked IMDb and I only saw 2 of them listed for some reason.
Okay.
I don't know if someone mixed it up or if I slipped by. You've been in 3 of the 5 films, and you were a sleestack, I believe, in Land of the Lost with Will Ferrell.
Yes.
And there's other roles, obviously, out there that we'll probably discuss and get to and whatnot in this interview, as well as just discussing what's it like being a suit performer in the industry, obviously. So, other than that, I guess we'll just do the actual first question. And the question that I always start with is, since we want to try to get to know the actors and how they got their beginning, is what actually interests you in the arts, in theater, in acting? What was that catalyst, I guess?
It's something I always wanted to do, even ever since I was a little kid. And so after I got out of high school, it wasn't until 2 years after high school I actually went to a theater school and started studying theater, and I got a degree and all that stuff.
All right. And I guess, was there any real inspiration behind it? Like, was there a particular movie or a particular like play that maybe your parents took you to?
No, but I come from a small town, and we did have a theater at the time in the town, and so the owner of the theater said that when I was a teenager, Kurt, you can come in 7 days a week and watch movies for free. We're not going to charge you, and everybody knows. So I saw a lot of movies in the 70s and early 80s for free. So I think I can't point to one thing that made me want to do this.
All right. And you were saying like you got a education. What schools did you attend, like, for acting then?
I went to a place called Point Park College, which owned the Pittsburgh Playhouse back in the day, and that's in Pittsburgh.
Okay, so you're actually an East Coast guy like myself.
Yes.
Pretty much. Okay. And you're currently out most likely in California, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so obviously you gone from east to west, and I know you became a suit performer in the industry. How did that actually like occur? Like, was it due to what I recently discovered was your performance in a Little Shop of Horrors stage play, or was it something else? Like did you want to always work in a special effects department like this, or was it just kind of on accident?
Well, special effects always fascinated me, even since I was a little kid. And so when I was a senior in college, the professional company was doing a production of Little Shop of Horrors, and I ended up being the plant in the second act of the show. They had someone else to do the first act plant. So I was good enough that a couple gentlemen very kindly talked to the people they knew in New York who worked on the show and said, "Hey, if you ever need a guy to do the plant, we would like you to take a look at this guy." So a few months after the show closed of Little Shop, where I was in Pittsburgh, I got a call to go to New York, and I went to New York and I auditioned and I got a job as an understudy in the show in New York for a couple of months because their regular understudy was going away for a couple of months, so they needed a replacement. So I did that for a couple of months. I went on only a handful of times, and then the show closed about a year later. So I came back every few months for a week or week and a half at a time when they needed a replacement or someone needed a break or were going on vacation or whatever. So I was kind of like the go-to in the last year of the show, I was like the go-to understudy for the plant for the show.
All right. Now, I'm assuming this was based on the Frank Oz adaptation of Roger Corman's film, right? Or was it
No,
just based on the
no,
original?
yeah. The timeline is the show opened in June of '82, I think.
Okay.
The Roger Corman movie, what came out in the '60s,
Yeah, I believe so.
early '60s. So if I have my history right, the production of Little Shop that I was in was based on the movie.
Yes.
And then in the fall or winter of '86 was when the Frank Oz movie came out.
Yeah, because I always forget the timeline myself. Because like most people, I was introduced to Oz's adaptation, which I think was, I'm assuming, an adaptation of the play, which was an adaptation of Corman's film. Because I usually switch it up because I do recall that after Oz's film, like the play was brought back to certain theaters because of the popularity of the film. So like that timeline is very hazy for me because growing up in the '90s, especially.
Yes,
Thing.
Yeah, I did a fair number of productions of Little Shop of Horrors around the country, especially in the summertime. Massachusetts and Michigan and San Jose, California, and Oklahoma and Texas. And so, yeah, I did a number of productions when the rights were released to regional theaters.
Okay. Now, I'm assuming though, this was what was really like what led to your decision, right? Or did you always want to just go into regular acting, or was this like what made you realize I like doing this style?
Well, it's a little more simplified than that. I had a job where before I got the job in New York, I was a bill collector to pay the bills. When I say a bill collector, over the phone, I was calling people who were delinquent on their credit cards and trying to get them to pay their credit card bill. So I got the job. So I went to New York, I got the job, and believe me, getting to do Little Shop of Horrors in New York was way better than calling people about their delinquent credit cards. So that was like a no-brainer. And I eventually moved to New York, and I stayed there for 10 years. And I would do the show, like I said, in summer theaters a lot. And so it was kind of like it was a money decision. It was, well, okay, you can go to New York and be a puppeteer in the show. It's really not acting. But I didn't care. I thought it was a great opportunity for myself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because I do know there's like people who are trained actors who are just they want to be a part of a production, whether it be doing being in the puppeteer or doing both puppeteer and voice and whatnot, and that makes sense because there are people who just love being a part of theater or production. It's a like they say it's the bug, obviously.
Yeah. My roommate in 1985, my roommate at the time was going to audition for Little Shop of Horrors, the production I first did, and he listened to it constantly. And I heard that soundtrack 1,000 times. And little did I know, like a year later, I would be in the show. So it's just funny how those things work.
Now, we opened up with mentioning you were in the Godzilla '98 film. And IMDb says that's your first movie role. Is that correct? Or were there other movies in between?
No, my first movie role was cut. I was in a movie called Dominic and Eugene, which I think came out in 1988. think we shot that in '87. I did a scene with Ray Liotta in that movie. The movie had Jamie Lee Curtis and Tom Hulce and Ray Liotta, and I played a medical student along with Ray Liotta. But my scene was cut. My scene was
Okay.
cut from that movie. So that was
that could explain why I don't see it when searching.
Yeah, yeah, and I also was in a George Romero movie, which I'm very happy about. It was called Monkey Shines.
Oh, you were in that one? I haven't seen it in full in ages, but I did not realize you were in that.
Yeah, well, what happened was I really liked George Romero movies, and I had an opportunity to be an extra, and I said that's fine by me. So I was an extra in that movie. And while on set, George Romero called me over and he had me do a scene with Joyce Van Patten. I believe that was the actress. So, so I was given lines, and so I was upgraded to day player. But that my scene was cut also.
Okay.
But you can still see me in the movie when I believe is when the main character comes home from the hospital. I'm one of the people, one of the extras in the background when he comes home.
Yeah, because I guess because if it's cut, it doesn't count for IMDb. I don't know because when I look, it shows 98 as like whoever it is who updates your page probably just leaves out that information.
Right. Well, I think for me it'd be a little unfair to say like, oh, I was in Dominic and Eugene. You didn't make the final cut, so you're really not in it, and I'm really not in Monkey Shines. But for me, I can say I was there. So
yeah,
and that was important to me that I could say for myself that I was in a George Romero movie.
No, that's awesome because, like I said, when I was looking at it, and when I did my research when asking you, hey, do you have other interviews, so I know what not to maybe repeat or what to say, I was like, wait, if he's been doing stage acting and also other acting, where are the roles in between this state and this state? I was like so confused because I was like, something doesn't look right on IMDb or, credited everywhere else. So I was like, I need to ask him this because I was assuming there was either independent productions or just, cut material, like as
Right.
you just told us.
Yeah.
And so when obviously doing the 98 Godzilla film, can you walk me through like how you got involved with its process, like the audition and whatnot, like how you became aware of the production and, obviously got onto set as the creature performer?
Sure. Well, it's 1996, and I think the biggest money-making movie of that year was Independence Day.
Yes.
Which was directed by Roland. And I had I'd seen that movie in the summertime with a friend, and it was a fun summer movie. And then in November of '96, I get a phone call out of the blue. I had no idea. I was living in New York. They're making this Godzilla movie in Los Angeles. I had no idea that this movie was happening. And so I got a phone call out of the blue from the casting director saying that the producers of Independence Day are looking for someone to play Godzilla for their next movie. So that seemed like a good opportunity for me. And it took a little cajoling on my part because they thought I was in Los Angeles. And they said, oh, you're not in LA. They really want someone local. And I said, you tell them that I will fly out there on my own dime if they want to meet me. And they called back a little while later and said, okay, you have a meeting at 20th Century Fox on Thursday. So it was just complete out of the blue. I had no idea that I was not tuned into what was happening in LA because I was in New York.
Okay. Now, how did they become aware of you? Like, what was the thing? Was it just that like your agent sent you in and you had the stats they were looking for?
I think stats they were looking for was maybe it. No one submitted me. I still, if you hold a gun to my head, I have no idea how I got the phone call. The only thing I can think of, some months prior to that, the Screen Actors Guild would send out like a magazine, and inside was like a little card with special skills. And so I filled it out and sent it in. And And I put my height was one of the things they were looking for, and I had puppeteering skills. So I'm assuming the casting director called the union and said, we need people that are 6'3" and have puppeteering skills. And my name got spat out of the computer. But and that was one thing when they called. She said, "Are you 6'3"?" And I said, "Yes." She said, "Don't lie to me. Are you really 6'3"? Because if you're not, we're going to be really angry with you." And I said, "No, I promise you, I'm 6'3". She said, "Okay." So
Yeah, because I would assume that because other actors, I believe, what is it, Doug? I think his name's Doug Jones, is always cast for like very tall, lanky guys because he's
oh
like
yeah, oh I
that
know Doug. Oh
perfect
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sure.
and that. And I hear he's a really pleasant man because my friend has met him at like three, I think, conventions, and the guy actually like vaguely remembers him. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, man?"
Yeah.
So he's like on
Yeah.
like that weird convention casual level with Doug and that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I assume that because I always hear always with suit performers that they always want you to be at least 6'2" at a minimum or higher because they always want to get like their creature effects to be so big without requiring stilts and making it harder for I
Right.
know obviously when we get to Underworld you were still probably on stilts, but I
Right.
know they try to in a sense mitigate that as much as they can by getting an actor who can fit a build.
Right.
Um, so obviously you said you did the meeting with them to work on it, and was there like physical audition and roles that they needed, or they just talked you through it and said, "Okay, you're our man"? Like, how did that all play out?
The first meeting was you went in and you're not moving or anything. You're just sitting down and you're talking to producers and visual effects people and miniature effects people, visual effects people, and the producers and assistants. And they tell you, this is what we're looking for. What's your experience? What have you done? And they decided, okay, you can go on to the next round. So then they give you a video. They gave us a videotape of different reptiles moving. And uh, the only thing they would say is, don't think about Godzilla that you know. This is a different kind of Godzilla. So next time you come in, we want you to come in and do your Godzilla. So the next, about a week later, you go in and then you meet the director and more producers, and then you go in and you do your Godzilla walks and runs and all that stuff. And then people say, do it this way, do it that way, add this, take away that, but add this. And then a week later, they have it narrowed down to three guys, and they show us what Godzilla actually looks like for the movie. They have
A
a
resin model, I'm assuming.
yeah, they have like a maquette, a big maquette of of Godzilla and production drawings, uh, and that answered a lot of questions. And also Patrick Totopoulos, the designer of the cost of the creature, was there, and we could ask him a lot of questions, and I had a lot of questions.
Now,
And pardon
sorry,
me.
sorry, I was gonna say, what was your initial thoughts on their take of Godzilla since they made him more like iguana meets a Tyrannosaurus or a raptor? Like when you
Right. I thought it was great. I really liked it a lot. The because it was very fresh and different, and it looked the maquette that I saw looked fast.
Hmm.
Uh, and so we did. So we could ask Patrick as many questions as we could, and then a few days later, we came back, and then it was the final audition, and you went in, and there was like, I don't know, 20, 30 people in there, and you went in, and they just said, okay, when you're ready, start. And you just started moving, and then they would give you direction, um, and then after the audition was over with, I think they took about 2 months before they called you and called and offered me a job. So that's kind of how it happened.
All right. Now, I'm assuming since the movie, you saw the original take that I believe Stan Winston wanted to do, where it still looked more like a more traditional Godzilla, but it was
I think I have,
still,
yes, I think I have seen it. Yeah.
yeah, because that's a pretty awesome looking suit that was never used. But like I assume Roland said it was too traditional still because it
Okay.
was more standing upright. It looked like what I the best way to explain it is it looked like what if the Heisei Godzilla was a lot more slimmer, if you've ever seen the ones from the 90s. It was like, what if
Hmm.
he was more slimmer? What if he was a lot more like a lizard green with a lighter belly tone, like an actual
Yeah.
lizard would look like. And it was just very, it's very more slim. I'll probably have an image up while we're talking for our audience that doesn't know, but most people probably know what we're
Yeah.
talking about. And so, were there any changes with the design that you saw as production went on, or was it already finalized for the Godzilla you portrayed? Like, was there different stuff? Because I've seen artwork of it since then, but did you see any of that during its production?
The artwork that I saw during the audition process and the maquette that I saw, that's what we shot.
Okay, so it was pretty much
Yeah,
finalized by the time you
yeah,
were already brought in for auditions.
yeah.
Okay.
And also, of course, time is a big factor, and changing things takes time, and you're almost always racing the clock.
Now, I've seen images where it's like mostly you're wearing like a front part with a spine and a tail. Was there a full-fledged like suit for you, or were there just parts that went on you?
Yeah, no, there was both, both.
Okay.
Like if I was breaking through the wall of the tunnel, there's no reason for me to have the tail on and the legs and the feet because you're only going to see me like from the waist up. So
Oh.
yeah, they had it broken down. They had the like kind of like, well, we called it the bolero suit, which was it just it was like a jacket, and then of course I would wear the head of the creature. Um, and But yeah, there was a lot of training in the full Godzilla suit. Uh, some things, it's been a few years since we've done it. I think I was in the full suit a few times for some shots, especially test shooting, because we needed the whole costume for test
Yeah,
shots to see what
I,
would
I
work.
think it's hard to find those images. Do you have any personally outside of the one that I saw at Power Morphicon?
Oh God, you know what? I think most of the behind the scenes stuff is out there.
Okay,
I
because I,
think
I I don't
I've
think I've seen it. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Okay. I can maybe see if I can send you a picture or so, but I think I've posted stuff before and then it spread like a virus in the
Oh
Godzilla
yeah,
community.
I see video of it. Yeah, there is video of it on YouTube. I just I
Uh,
I didn't know it was out there. I didn't even
uh,
notice because I see like a lot of the baby versions. Did you ever wear any of the baby suits, or were those other
oh yeah, it was a
performers?
Baby Godzilla also. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, me and 7 or 8 other guys. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing more photos now. Thankfully, the Godzilla Reddit is good at keeping track of the photos either you've uploaded or other people who worked on the production uploaded.
Right.
Because, like I said, for me being a longtime Godzilla fan, whenever I see 98 stuff, it's always like, oh hey, this is new to me. Somehow, like somehow like the best way to explain it is if I've ever gone looking for it, it probably was in another direction, or like like I'm in the wrong place searching for it.
Right. Yeah,
That's
I
the
know.
funny
Like
part.
last year, someone came up to me and they had a picture of me in the Godzilla suit. Like, I have never seen that photo before. And
Yeah,
I was
because
there every day and I saw a lot of production photos, but like, wow,
yeah,
how
I'm
do I
seeing
get a
like
copy?
a scene with you without the head on, and I think the hands on, and it's like you and Roland actually like talking face to face,
Oh,
and
I think that photo is Patrick, uh,
oh
Pat,
okay,
Patrick Totopoulos, the designer of the
okay, because
creature.
it's kind of blurry, so it looks like
Yeah,
you because it has your hair and everything. So I was like I didn't know because I've never seen Patrick either.
yeah,
So I was just like, yeah, no, I'm looking at this and like people are gonna be like, man, Wheels, you slipping? And I'm like, yeah, I am slipping on this one when it comes to the images. I didn't know a lot of this footage. Like I've only like out of the footage I've seen is you with like the one that you had at Power Morphicon, and a few of the other stuff I saw were like the maquettes of like the actual big one that you said you saw where it's the front of him,
yeah.
and I saw like stuff for the babies, but like I'm looking now and I'm seeing a lot more of the images now, and I'm like, man, these are like really good because like someone has one on Twitter where it says, according to you, uh, here's the comment that I found on one image. It says, according to you, you fell asleep inside because it just like cradled you. It was actually made very well. You said it was very comfortable, the suit.
Yeah, it was. It was
Here's a
made for me and it was very comfortable.
here's a question though. was the suit already made and you just like fit in it like a glove, or did they have to actually like retool and craft it for you once you came in?
Uh, well, they make it for you. It's made for you.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah,
assuming so it was not made until they had your
that's correct.
measurements.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I'm just seeing a lot of this. Like actually, oh Christ, I just noticed the image of this specific tweet. I must have liked it years ago because it's like from like 2020 or something, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I forgot I even saw this. It was in my timeline, and I there you go, memory. Anyways, um, was there any like difficulty performing as Godzilla because of the posture of it being more dinosaur like, more reptile like, being hunched over? Like, did you have any like problems?
It was compared to the traditional Godzilla. I think it was more challenging than the traditional Godzilla because anytime you have your chest over your knees, over actually in front of your knees and your feet, and you have a tail, you have balance issues, and so there was a sweet spot in the Baby Godzilla and the Mother Godzilla, but also your footprint is fairly small, and so you only have 2 points of contact with the ground, your 2 feet, and your tail can start wagging, which just reverberates through the whole suit, and you're you're always trying to do the balance between making it look cool and making it not look like a guy in a suit. Um, so uh, so yeah, it was. I'm not saying it was impossible. Believe me, they made that suit as well as they had the best people in town working on those suits, and they were great. And they were. Hey, I fell asleep in one. That's how comfortable it was. So they were
Did they
made the
ever like?
best they.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, did they, like you said, with the tail being an issue, did they ever have any like assistance for you? Like, did they ever use wires to try to placate or mitigate some of the issues you had, or was it just you had to move and hope that the tail didn't
No, not
obstruct
with the
you?
tail. You just kind of had to find your rhythm
Oh, okay.
with the tail. And I know in rehearsal, one of my dressers to mess with me, he would grab my tail and pull it, and because you would think you were in rehearsal, you thought you were doing pretty good, and then your tail starts wagging and throws off your whole balance and all, and like who's touching my tail, So that
So
was just
that makes sense. That's kind of like I'm gonna use an analogy, like you said, is like because you're in the suit and the tail is part of your body. It's like my wheelchair, even though I am physically disabled, and that when you sit in the chair long enough, you can tell when something's like off. Like if, like, say you were behind me pushing or going to do something, I could either feel you either adjusting the handlebars on the back because they have like a almost my chair is kind of an older type where it has like a stroller bar kind of handle set. So like
okay,
if someone touches it, it kind of like moves. You can actually feel like someone turning it, or you can hear it getting turned. And you can also, like, just because of a person's grip, you can almost feel it, like when they grab it, it will give like a slight vibration through the aluminum. So like you
right,
said, it's like essentially my handlebars are like how you say the tail. Like if someone
yes,
touches it that they shouldn't or adjust it, you're like something's not right, even though
right,
you don't have an actual real sensory because it's not your nervous system or your body. You're
hmm
like, this doesn't feel right. No,
yes.
that makes a lot of sense. Like that's a great analogy for people wondering, like I don't get it. How does he know the tail if it's already wagging or whatever? It's like once you're
Right.
used to something, once you're fit, it becomes almost like your body. It's like
Yeah.
an extension. All right. So that was like probably, you say, the hardest part was really the tail, right?
Well, I wouldn't say
Adjusting
it
to
was
it.
just the trying to make it look like really just to make it look like Godzilla, make it look really cool uh and the body position. But that's the way it was. That's and like I said, they made that costume beautiful costume, the best, and like I said, the best people in town working on it. So it was really a lot of fun to work in.
So this is a question that I think you might not have an answer for regarding the suit. I've always wanted to know because I don't know how to get a hold of Patrick if he's still in the business or available or does interviews. But the question I've always wanted to know is Did they ever explain the choice of like the skin color and skin tone of the Godzilla? Because as I'm noticing yet again, it always looked like there was like a different hue. Like the maquette didn't have the blue on the neck and body, but your suit has
Yeah.
blue on the underbelly, and there's a lot more blue in the dorsal spikes than there are in some other shots of the film. Did they ever explain what the color on the suit to you was for, or did you ever ask that?
I never asked, and you are correct. The maquette was kind of a monochrome. It certainly gave you a great idea of what the creature looked like and what it would move like. But when it came time to airbrush and paint the costume, um, I had uh, I thought it looked so great. I had nothing to add. First of all, no one cares. My opinion is I'm just the guy in the suit.
Yeah.
And no one ever told me like it's going to be this color because of this. If they did, I've forgotten. I
Okay.
forgot.
Yeah, because I was always curious because like as you see photos, there are versions of it where it doesn't seem to have that blue look to it in certain
Hmm.
areas, and then other ones are like a more flatter. And then I think like at one point there's a shot where it almost has more of a fleshier tone for the underbody or belly. Like I'm not too sure if it's just the lighting supposed to be like with when they added the effects for the strobe lighting and whatnot. Maybe it was always there and I just didn't notice it.
Right.
But I noticed that blue on the. I was wondering what was the reasoning or if they ever explained
Sure.
because like it's just an interesting fact because when you go from obviously the movie to the cartoon, he's more of a dark maroonish brown skin for the most
Right.
part, and he
Okay.
has like a very dark dorsal plates in there because like I don't know how you would explain the cartoon's color because like I said it looks sort of brown but it also looks gray. It's it's a very interesting color if I recall. I could be wrong.
Right.
It's been a minute since I watched it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's mostly like a gray. In some takes it looks like brown.
Yeah.
Um, but it's a lot different from the color that we see in the film where there's a lot more blue on it, obviously.
Right. And the those behind the scenes photos taken with different kinds of film, not digital. It could be, I was standing in front of a filter, a light filter or some lights that have been gelled or something. So
Yeah, and it could have
that
reflected
could that
off
could
of
mess with the
the
colors. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, that was just something I was curious about. Um, Other than that, regarding all the work you did on the film, how much do you recall actually being used in the final product? And what are some scenes that you wish were featured that could have been cut or were cut?
I was getting towards the end of production, and we were working on Godzilla running on the Brooklyn Bridge, and so they built a small section of the roadbed of the Brooklyn Bridge for me to run on, and I knew what they wanted me to do, uh, but it was we just didn't have the time. Like like I had like one chance to like do this, and it wasn't as successful as they wanted it to be. So they said, "Well, we'll just do it CG."
I'm assuming it's
And
the part where he like scaled up the side of the one and then jumped
no, it wasn't
down.
even that. It wasn't even that, Billy. It was like a shot of the steel beams that are above the where the cars are on the Brooklyn Bridge. They wanted Godzilla's foot to come and knock all those beams down, and the foot comes down and picks up and breaks more beams and then comes down. And they wanted the camera point of view, like on the roadbed, kind of watching that, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot more sense. In visual, like recalling that scene because a lot of people don't really agree with that ending where traditional weapons were able to finally take down the
Right.
creature. It's one of those things that I think a lot of people I know most people disagree with that part of the movie for the most part. I know there's people who seldomly say it's an all right flick, and then there's people who in the community that outright hate it.
Yeah.
I'm one of the people where I think the traditional weaponry kill is the only worst part about the film, really.
Right. Right. Uh,
Because early in the film, he's been hit with several things, and it didn't bother him once. How's getting shot in the neck?
Yeah, he's
Like,
getting shot a lot. I know we rehearsed me doing that with bean bags. They would throw bean bags at me, and we would videotape it. And I had to react to. I
yeah.
didn't know where the bean bags were coming from. It probably would have helped if they would have said, "We're going to hit you with 6 bean bags, here, 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 and here in this sequence." But you know,
And like you said, you did the babies. There's like usually like at times one or two or three. So I'm assuming you were not the only person there, or were those all like puppets at times? Like, how did
uh,
they do that? Those
they
scenes per se.
we had if memory serves, I know we had a hydraulic Baby Godzilla
Mhm.
that was really great, and that was used. I know for sure when the Baby Godzilla had to break through an elevator door, and that was certainly hydraulics can do that. But like I said, there was 7 or 8 of us playing Baby Godzillas in full on 1-to-1 scale costumes, uh, and uh, so those were all of us on in leg extensions in the full costume. And a lot of the time when we were especially in the Madison Square Garden set, we were bolted to the stage floor because we weren't moving. The actors were going to like we had just been born,
That's the part
and
with the eggs, obviously.
yeah, with the eggs, and so the actors are running through, between us and by us. And when we were bolted to the stage floor, that took one of the considerations uh, out of your way, so that you didn't have to worry about the tail, you didn't have to worry about momentum, because you were bolted to the floor. So you could really crank yourself and do some really extreme moves, which looked really great, I thought. So it was we had one, as I remember, one for sure hydraulic Baby Godzilla that the team made up. They had the mechanical department, the hydraulic guys, and girls. We also had some girls working on it too, and in the mechanical department certainly, and of course the fabrication department. And then the Baby Godzillas, which were made by all the same people that made the Mother Godzilla suit.
Did you prefer being the Godzilla suit, or were the babies a little bit more feasible, or were they harder to maneuver? Was there a difference? Did you notice between the two?
I liked them both, and I know that's kind of a BS answer, but they both had their pluses. It was great to be with the other guys, and we had so many people working on set because each uh, each Baby Godzilla had 2 or 3 puppeteers, um, remote control puppeteers, and we all had, and they also dressed us, and so it was fun to be there, and the actors were there, so they were, you know, they were running by us, and we were trying to attack them and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. But then when I was the Mother Godzilla, that was fun because we had a smaller team. I had like 6 dressers, I think. I think it was 6 dressers that I had for that, for the Mother Godzilla. And that was a different kind of fun because it was all the miniatures. So it was miniature cars and miniature mailboxes and street lamps and signs and all that stuff. So uh, uh, it was they were both a lot of fun to work in for different reasons.
Do you have a particular uh favorite scene that you have for recording versus film? Like obviously there's probably a scene that you liked when you filmed it, and then what was it the same scene when it finally hit the film per se? Like if you get what I'm trying to say, is like, did you have a scene that you liked, but then you preferred how the results came out after post production? Like, you if that makes any sense. Like say like, did you prefer doing like say the part where the Chrysler building gets destroyed, and then but film when the film came out, you're like, oh, I like the part where I came out of like MSG. Like, is there like a did you ever have like a different take of like versus having filmed it than the final result, or was it just
Um,
the favorite scene the entire time?
Gosh, that's a great question. I think um, probably the scenes that uh, when you're in a Godzilla suit in front of a camera and they're asking you to do something very specific and you rehearse it, you kind of get at least I get a picture in my head of what it looks like on camera. And so it's gratifying when you see the finished product and it matches exactly the what I imagined, my movements inside the costume uh are exactly what I thought would be captured on film. So that, I think, if that answers your question, that's
Yeah, because I know some actors will be like, "Oh, I preferred filming this stunt, but when I saw it in theaters, it didn't look that good. But then when I saw a later stunt that I hated, that one looked amazing." Like I've seen
right.
stuff like that happen, and that's all. I was just wondering, like, did you have that same vibe where you're like, "Man, I really love doing this part of the film, but watching it with all the effects, the music, and etc." It was like, because like for me, I think my favorite scene in that film is actually the helicopter chase, which I don't know how much of that was you filming and how much of that was the CG, where they're doing the helicopters, and I think that's when the Chrysler building is blown up, but it's the part where it's the three of them. They're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, he went through this building. Let's light it up. He might be inside," and then Godzilla just comes through the backside and then chases the one chopper that's left.
Yeah. You know what? I will need to watch the movie again. I know that I came through the side of a building. I believe I was intended to be attacking some helicopters that were going to be added later in post, if my memory
Yeah.
serves. Um, I know the producer told me that they wanted me to play one of the helicopter pilots. They thought that would be fun, but I was too busy. I was too busy doing Baby Godzilla stuff and siege and motion capture and the Mother Godzilla. So I would that would have been fun for me to do. Uh, but I'd say no. I think everything kind of came out the way I thought it would. Maybe I hoped the camera would linger a little bit more on something I did, but that's up to the editors and the director, not me, of course.
All right. Now, when you were filming this movie, obviously there's the sequel hook at the end where the baby's born, right? That eventually became the cartoon series. But how much of the sequel was in production, or were you not aware of the sequel? Like, were you already signed on to do the sequel? Had it been put into production, or like, do you recall any of those plans before the cartoon just became the sequel?
Um, I don't that I don't remember any of that. Maybe in my contract there was something about a sequel, but obviously, my attention was let's do this. Let's just do this movie and do this job and do the best we can. So I heard. I don't remember hearing a lot of talk about a sequel because there was no time. We're just let's get this
Mm.
shot, the best we can. So I can't really speak to a sequel or anything like that.
Yeah, because I know as years have gone on, a lot of the plans for the sequel have been revealed online, like the entire plot of the baby that eventually became the protagonist of the cartoon series was
Okay.
supposed to, obviously grow up, have somehow, like the mother, the asexual mother slash, the one that you played, the
Yeah.
main one, was gonna have like its own children again, but it was gonna be more. I wouldn't say it's still destructive, but a little bit more docile, like similar to the cartoon.
Hmm.
And it was gonna, and its children were gonna fight a new mutation. That was like supposed to be like a hive of like wasp bee hybrid monsters. I don't know if you
Okay.
ever heard about that, but eventually
No.
this TV series just takes that baby and then makes it that, oh, this baby's unable to actually have the asexual gene. It must
Right.
reproduce normal, like with some, like they said, oh, it can't reproduce asexually. It would need another Godzilla to reproduce, and thankfully there's no other Godzilla. So they're like, well,
Yeah.
that's good. And then in the show, it's kind of like, since Nick is actually there, it bonds to him, so it then becomes more of a docile, like dog monster that knows that, oh, I gotta go fight other mutations because my my parent slash, you know I guess you would say owner is telling me, yo, we gotta go see about these. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like a Scooby-Doo meets God. It's kind of like the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla, but what if it was cooler, I guess you could say,
Okay.
for for people because everyone jokes about the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla being crap, and I
Right.
like that growing up. I like the '98 one growing up, but like it's pretty much what if we did that but made it edgier and worked on by the guys who did the Men in Black cartoon.
Hmm.
Because I remember talking with you when we were at the Super 7 booth with Kyle Wodiga. You said you had never seen the cartoon sequel to the movie.
I've maybe seen an episode or two,
Mm,
but no, I really haven't seen it.
yeah.
And I have a friend who wrote an episode or two or more,
Oh,
but I just haven't seen it. But
yeah.
I was certainly aware of it.
Yeah. No, it's a very well written show. I think it's a well animated show for its time. And like there are really good episodes. There's an episode where the Godzilla you played is brought back from the dead as a cyborg, and it has to fight, the child, and the child has to fight the parent.
Right.
It's a real
Okay.
I think it was the season 1 finale, and that
Okay.
before it went to season 2. But now here's a question: did the performance or its critical reception at the box office have any effect on your career after its release? Like, were people looking for you to do more creature roles, or because you were on that film that was like seen as like an all right success, or was a mixed reception? Did it stop you from getting parts, if you recall?
No, I don't think it was not a negative at all. It was viewed as a negative at all, because um, uh, I never had anyone say, "Oh, you were that Godzilla. We can't hire you."
Okay.
The movie was not as successful as Independence Day, so no, I had no ill effects from working on Godzilla. If anything, it was a great thing for me. I got to meet a lot of great people, work with a lot of great people, so it's definitely a positive in my world.
Yeah, because when I was having discussions with some of my colleagues at the site, and my other co-founders, we even said most likely this actually helped your career versus everyone else, where it was like the actual actors and producers, where everyone was like, "Oh, this is like an asterisk on their career for the moment," obviously. Because I know, like, I think what was it after Godzilla '98, Matthew Broderick had like sketchy like appearances in other films. Like he didn't like a lot of people joke like it screwed his career up for like at least 2 years or something.
Okay.
People made that
Yeah.
joke, stuff like that.
Yeah.
People would kid it
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
I know people said it wasn't. It did ruin Hank Azaria's career because he's like everywhere and able to do so many voices on The Simpsons. Like he was like, I don't,
Hmm.
doesn't bother me. But like
Yeah.
people made a joke that it like either screwed with Broderick or it screwed with Emmerich for a while because of how it. Because like that's the thing. I don't think the movie itself fully flopped, but I know it wasn't received by critics.
Yes, it got the critical response it did, and so so be it. Obviously, I have no control over that.
Yeah,
So
obviously. No, that's one of those shames. Like obviously you were in a safer place, being the motion capture and the motion for the creature and that.
yeah,
So like afterwards, obviously you got into the Underworld films, and you played mostly werewolves.
only werewolves. Yeah.
Oh yeah, only werewolves. Yeah. So when you were brought in, what was like I guess the audition process like, and like what was it that made them realize, oh, we need to keep this guy for like the next films, like that kept calling you back?
Right. Well, Patrick Tatopoulos, he and his company who did Godzilla, they also did the Underworld movies, or the first three that I was in. And so they had worked with me and they recommended me to land the director. And so that was a big help. So I had a leg up over other people. So I did have to go in and audition for Len and everything. And so I was very, very lucky, very happy to get a job working on the first Underworld movie. But it's because I got the audition and everything because I had worked on Godzilla. They knew me and they recommended me to audition for the director of Underworld.
And obviously, like I'm looking at the roles, and I haven't watched all three in ages, or at least the first two. Each of them say like a specific werewolf that you played. Like one's like, oh, the hero werewolf, or
Yeah.
one's called like Interceptor or something like that. I'm trying to
Oh,
uh
okay.
I'm trying to just yeah. One says just werewolf performer. Another one says hero wolf, and then another one just says creature performer. But can you possibly like walk us through like which scenes you did and like which ones did you primarily require to do, I guess, some type of stunt or action role? Because I know in some of the interviews you did say you were in some of the fights, and then others you said you were like in the background as like just an extra werewolf in scenes.
Right. In the first Underworld movie, as I remember, there's a scene where two werewolves are fighting, uh, and inside, and there's a group of men standing around cheering on the fight. That was me and Brian Steele, and then I got shot, I got killed several times in that movie. One of the great things, smart things they did with that movie is all the werewolves pretty, they all look the same. So you can get killed and then get up and come back the next day, be in the same werewolf costume and get
And
killed
it's a
again.
different, yeah. Because
Yeah.
I know in like later films they started trying to at least give character to like the extra wolves, at least giving them because obviously in the second film that you're in, it's you're called Hero Wolf One,
Yeah.
so you obviously have more action if you got credited as Hero Wolf.
Yeah. And a lot of that hero thing has to do with the costume,
Oh, okay.
actually, more because we had some really talented, great stunt guys on those Underworld movies when I was in them. And so they would have stunt werewolf costumes, which were made differently than what I wore. I don't know if they're credited as stunt werewolf number one, stunt werewolf number two, etc. Really, from my experience, when they say like a hero werewolf, it means I had on one of these beautiful werewolf costumes with a fully animated head, with the eyes move and the ears move and the mouth opens and all that stuff. So, uh, like for example, in the second Underworld movie, I fight both Scott and Kate, and I'm in a tunnel when I'm fighting uh, Kate, and that is certainly you want a hero. If you had someone in a stunt suit doing that, the face of the werewolf it doesn't really move,
Yeah.
but so you want me in there with the snart, working with my remote control puppeteers to open the mouth at the right time when the eyes flare, and then so that's kind of a long explanation for a hero werewolf. It's not that I'm the hero. The costume,
Yeah.
the
No,
costume is a hero. Oh, my
I know
eyes
what you.
just went crazy.
Yeah, no, it's fine. No, I know what you mean because with Tokusatsu, like the shows that are made in Japan for Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, Super Sentai, they have stuff called Hero Suit. They have stuff called Action Suit, where the Hero Suit usually is like the one that you see in all the promotion photos. Like, so if they have like a chrome look, they'll look more chrome, but the
Yeah,
stunt suit will look more faded, so they don't have to worry about damaging
yeah,
or whatnot. Or there'll be a slight difference, maybe like for the stunt suit, eyes of characters will be like smaller than they are, even though you see close ups and the eyes could be like this big, the suit
yeah,
could be like this big, and more protective and stuff like that.
yeah.
So because you were in the hero suit and like I said, like I remember talking to you, you said you're not really a stunt actor, you're a suit performer, obviously. Um, when doing certain action scenes that are sort of out of your element, like was there any chaotic moments on set where like you and the actors, like you said, you had to fight Kate and Scott in Underworld 2. Was it hard and difficult for the choreography? Because like I know in some scenes they'll switch out, Kate for her stunt double and whatnot. Like, was there any issues between you, the stunt doubles, like moving around, making sure no one really actually got like hurt or like bumped and whatnot?
No, we had really good stunt coordinators, and everything was choreographed, and it was very safe. We did, uh, like I said, it was worked out before we shot anything. And I know in Underworld 3, I had to fight a horse. And so I had a woman, stunt woman, on a horse, and the horse is rearing up and down, and I'm supposed to the camera's, I think, behind me, and I'm slashing with my claws and my arms back and forth at the horse. And I've told this story before. One of my claws, the horse also had armor over its nose, and one of my claws clipped the armor. And I looked just because I didn't know if I thought I like.
You thought you actually made contact with the horse, right? Like,
Yeah, with the horse, and I know the stunt woman who was on the horse was in control, but for that split second, you're like, is that horse going to attack? Going to attack me? Did I hurt it?
yeah.
So everything was very safe and worked out. And I don't remember. Certainly when I was working with Scott and Kate, I did not want to hurt them. So that's where the suit acting comes in, where you pretend that you're slamming her against the wall. She was also really great with using her physicality to make it look like I was really slamming her against the wall and choking her. And same thing with Scott. He was really great. He's very physical, and he's very good with the fighting and making everything look real. But certainly it's in the back of my head, like, don't hurt these people. Don't do anything stupid to hurt these people.
Yeah, because like I know that in some of the earlier films with Kate, when she did action, like she would still do some of her own stunts, but not all of her own stunts. Like obviously, she seemed to be one of those actual, I'm a pretty girl who loves actually doing dangerous stuff. At least that's what I've been told from other interviews. They said, they're like, hey, how much was your stunt double? And she was like, what stunt double? And they're like, no, seriously. And she's like, okay, there is a stunt double, but like I do get tossed around. And I was like, oh, okay, because I know that I was assuming, because like with like the werewolf scenes, a lot of those up closes, it was like, was that a double or was that actually them? You can't really tell.
Right.
Now, here's a question: were the wolves your most difficult suit to perform in, or was there ones from a later / more recent production like that was harder for you to adjust to or adapt to when wearing it?
No, the werewolves are not the most challenging suit I've ever worn. I mean, the Mother Godzilla and the Baby Godzillas were challenging, and it's not because of, to reiterate, was not because of the way the suit was constructed or made or the people who made it. It was just the body position.
That's okay.
And then I did a movie a couple years ago where I played this kind of odd, hairless kind of bear. And once again, that suit was made as well as it could be, but it was very heavy.
Okay.
It was very heavy, and they changed some things. They wanted this creature I played, to like run after, and like, it's too heavy. It's real a challenge to run in this thing because it's so heavy. It's I'm exaggerating, but it's like having a Steinway piano on your back.
I completely get like having like that metaphor, because like also like with a wheelchair, certain type of carpets is like I'm on a whole new planet with a different level of gravity due to the friction of the chair to the carpet or the surface. But no, I get that. Like, it's not to the extent that you had, obviously, where the suit could weigh like 40 or 80 pounds, but I can at least somewhat, say it's not the same extent, but I get what you're saying of when you have extra weight, or if you have extra friction against you, you're gonna have a problem.
Right. And to add to that, I know you, if I'm whenever I did Little Shop of Horrors or whatever movie or TV show I'm working on, and I'm going to be in a suit, I like to get there early on the first day to see what the floor's like. I want to see like, is there carpeting? Am I going to have to make sure I step up? Is there a step I have to deal with? Is it slick? Is it not slick? Is it going to be wet? Because the base.
Because if you're not aware of your environment, it can also throw off how you're gonna apply yourself to the suit. Correct? Because even if you get adjusted to the suit, sometimes you can't equate to. I need to remember how the suit should feel like when moving in. Even if you got adjusted to the suit perfectly, you could still forget, like, oh, this suit doesn't deal good on slick floors, or I will slide and fall.
Yeah.
And then next thing, your brain just forgets, like, because it becomes second nature, and the next thing you forget to apply. Oh wait, this is a slick floor, and the next thing you're like face planting or slipping around like a cartoon. Yeah. No, I completely get that because you want to make sure the environment, or like, oh, are we doing this in the rain? Are we doing this and that? How much of weight? Because water obviously on the suit will add, pounds,
Right.
especially if it's a downpour, like in Underworld, where there's scenes where there's supposed to be like super storms and stuff like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one thing about also being a guy who studies film and stuff. I can completely understand everything without actually having been in film or production.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I noticed you tend to work a lot more on smaller productions, and there's usually fan projects thrown in there because, like, we were talking, because I noticed you'd played the Predator, and I realized, oh, it was from the Batman event, or the Batman fan film that was early 2000s. And then I noticed on some of your other filmography, some of these are like very indie films that like I haven't heard of, or ones that didn't make actual theatrical releases.
Yeah.
And there's even a thing where it says you played Lex Luthor in like a fan film, I believe. So
yes, I played Lex Luthor in a sequel to Batman Dead End. Yes. Yeah.
So now, do you prefer working on these smaller productions than the more elaborate Hollywood blockbusters, or do you just take the roles when offered?
I pretty much take the roles when offered, if it's something that I want to do. And so uh, that's really the answer. If I want to do it and it's offered to me, I'll go do it. Yeah.
Okay, because I was noticing that I was like, oh, this guy, while being in bigger roles as a performer, I see you also will just be like, oh, okay, I'll do this indie role, or like, I don't know how to classify it, because like, to me it's all indie if it's never been full wide
Sure.
release. Because like, for example, I'm pretty sure, like, I'm gonna just say this, the Deep Ones, I'm pretty sure that wasn't widely released in North America, but it says you
No,
played Dagon.
I have a DVD copy of it, and I think it's on
2B maybe.
there's something. Yeah, and but I had a great. I worked on that one day, and I got to meet, have a nice long conversation with a guy who was in All the President's Men, and so that was fantastic. I had a lot of fun, and I got to play a cool kind of a creature from the Black Lagoon kind of character.
Yeah, I haven't
And
seen that one yet. I've been meaning to, so I wonder what their interpretation of Dagon looks like. Because
yeah,
if you say it looks like the creature of the Black Lagoon, that sounds what I would think would look like Dagon.
yeah, a little ish, yeah, a little.
So obviously we were just talking about you working on smaller productions, having fun. Um, Now, obviously, with the advent of like CGI, obviously Godzilla '98 was a huge movie with CG, and since then more CG has been in there. Um, how has CG affected your career? Because I know like when you're still a suit performer, sometimes they'll overlay CG to help try to make it look smoother and whatnot. But I know you've also said in another interview you don't really like motion capture and prefer like sometimes the suit with CG assistance. So like, what's your opinions on how CG is like affecting, being a performer, and your thoughts on motion capture as a whole?
Well, I like motion capture. Let me take the second half of that first.
Okay.
I like motion capture a lot. It's a lot of fun to do because it's very fast, and you can really use your imagination in creating things to be captured. Um,
Okay.
so, but CG. Godzilla was the first movie I worked on that we used CG, and uh, there were things that uh, we could have maybe shot, but that element of time comes in, and we don't have the time to, do 7 takes and see if we can get this, so we can just do it in CG. So CG it's a part of the business, and it's probably around to stay until something replaces it. And uh, and that's just the way it is. I mean, I know like Len Weissman, who directed the first two Underworld movies. He liked having guys in suits because it was real, it was lit right in front of the camera, and it was very, tangible. And so, but those CG men and women who do that, they're really good at their jobs. They're really good at their jobs, and that stuff looks great. So, but that's just, that's just the way it is.
Mm.
And you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, because I like when I wrote that question, I was going off of some of your older interviews where you said, "Oh, I like motion capture, but I still prefer the practical." Like like myself,
Yeah,
I'm one of those
yeah,
guys where it's like if you can do it practical and CG can help make it look more realistic per se, and just
yeah.
overlay it in some areas, do that. I'm in that mentality of it's kind of like how people say like I'm not a fan of AI, but some people will say, oh, you can run certain things with a bit of an AI to help clean something up or something
Yeah.
like that, or like because like there are people now who use like this thing called like an AI digital scanner, so it helps with remastering stuff and it makes it
Okay.
almost look perfect. Like, and that makes sense, like because I've seen like films where it's called like something AI something, and companies have been using it to try to help them remaster films that are
Okay.
not able to be done from I think full film. It's like if it was shot on tape, they were like, oh, this is not film, so we can't fully remaster it like it's on film. So they'll run
Yeah.
like standard definition stuff through it to try to get almost a film like response.
Right.
And it's some kind of program slash artificial like that makes sense. So like to
Hmm.
me, like overlaying CG in certain areas, like with the Godzilla, there's obviously times where you can tell it's your prosthetics most likely with a bit of CG probably. But no, that makes
Yeah.
sense. And also like what's your opinions though? Because obviously there's been cases where Hollywood executives in interviews have straight up said that they think monster suits, practical effects with maquettes and puppets don't seem realistic. They say it looks too much like I've heard them try to compare it, saying when they see old Yoda, it's like looking at a Muppet, and I'm like, well, yeah, that's because Jim Henson Creature Productions or whatever
Right.
helped make it like, and they look still realistic to me. I feel like because like actors say if it's something they can touch, they can see, it's easier than seeing just like a stick with a beach ball taped to it, or
Yeah.
whatever they do. So like, what's your opinions on executives who think that kind of style is stupid, like practical stuff?
Right. I suppose it maybe depends on the age of the executive. If they're older, and they grew up with a man or a woman in a suit, uh, that's their aesthetic. But an executive who might be in their early 30s or late 20s, who grew up with a computer and grew up accustomed to computer generated images or animated images, I could see like that was their first introduction to it. That's what they like, and that's the way it is. And to each his own. But I think a man or a woman in a suit or a puppet, if it's lit right and it's well made, uh, I think it's perfectly fine. You brought up the example of Yoda from The Empire Strikes Back. Um, I bought it. I bought it. I didn't think like, oh, this is a stupid puppet. But my suspension of disbelief totally went with it. But if I see a ventriloquist on stage, I generally look at the dummy on stage,
Yeah.
not the. When I was in New York and I went to Sesame Street a few times, I got invited up to Sesame Street, and I was watching the Muppets there on Sesame Street talking to the humans. Um, it didn't look odd to me.
Yeah,
It
you almost forget, like, even though they're there and you see them like kind of holding a puppet, you kind of just forget. Like I've seen other actors who say because you grow up with it or you know about it, to
Yeah,
you, once they're in character, once they're moving, you kind of just forget you're looking down at a guy moving like
yeah,
a puppet. You just completely are in, like, you're locked in, you know
right,
how it works. And
yeah,
I think that's the issue that a lot of executives forget, is that if you can suspend your disbelief when looking at like Sesame Street or the Muppets, because a lot of people even say Muppets feel like real characters, they feel like people to them.
yeah,
It's like you can do that for anything.
yeah,
You can do that for as long as the suit looks realistic enough. Because I know, like, one of my favorite movies is Silver Bullet, but the werewolf suit at the end isn't that great. It's a little cheesy.
Right. Right.
But I love that movie, and the practical stuff in Underworld is incredible. Like, that's great. What is it? I'm just using werewolves as example. What is it? American Werewolf in London. Really great prosthetics and props. Like that stuff you can get behind. The physical stuff that we saw in the early Jurassic Park films. Those, and the maquette of the Godzilla. Like those feel like they're actually real.
Yeah.
And I guess, so we can like start wrapping up. I guess the best thing is, what is required to be a suit performer? What do you think is like, what is required? What do you think, as a performer, think if you had to teach a class, what are the stuff you would try to tell people what is required to be? Or is it just, like you said earlier when we were talking about Godzilla, it's more or less, do you fit a specific build for the director or producer? Like, what kind of information can you give?
Right. Well, there's people of all shapes and sizes that are suit performers, men and women. But I would say, I've said this before, I am not saying in any way you need to be an Olympic level athlete. No. From my experience, you do need a certain level of fitness to be able to do the job, because you're carrying around a suit that weighs X amount. And you may be wearing that suit for 15 hours, 16 hours a day. And a good helping of patience, because, you shoot something and, you got to do different takes. And then you think you got it. And then they decide, you think you're done, but no, the director wants to do it again from another angle or with a different lens, or they check the gate and there's dust in the gate. So you got to shoot the whole thing all over again. So patience, a certain level of physical fitness, and the ability to be ready to shoot when they want you. Because what happens a lot from my experience is, you may be in the suit at 10 a.m. in the morning, as they ask you to be ready at 10 a.m. And then you may be in that suit until 2 a.m. Waiting to shoot.
So there are times, like, once you're in the suit, you can't take the suit off at all.
No.
Okay.
No, because what will happen, of course, is you take the suit off, and also taking the suit off is not like putting on a bathing suit. You have a whole crew of people, and so I know for a fact, that's exactly what would happen if you're like, I'm just going to take this off. As soon as you get it off, that's when they're going to call you. And then if you're not ready when they want you, then that's not good. So you can be in that suit for hours and hours waiting to work, and it can drain you a little bit. So you got to know how to conserve your energy just sitting there waiting to work. And it could be 10 hours, it could be 12 hours later, it could be 16 hours later that they call you to work. And then you've got to bring that energy, that performance energy up. So you give the director and the camera person, what they want.
All right. So I guess that's good advice about saying you got to be used to just the weight of the suit, how long you have to be in the suit, how shooting schedules can be very chaotic. For advice. Now, is there any like things you would want to warn newcomers getting into becoming a suit performer? Like, are there any health concerns they should worry about? Not just having a good physical condition. Like, is there anything that you think should be a precautionary tale? Like, in a sense, like, obviously, if you have claustrophobia, you're probably not going to be a suit performer.
Yeah, if you're claustrophobic, that could be a problem. And I would say, just be prepared for anything, and try to think of the worst case scenario happening, so that anything that happens to you is not your worst case scenario. You're having a good day. And ask questions, because I know I've had to do some minor stunt things in suits. And I ask a lot of questions about how's this going to be done? What's expected of me? I had to do a scene in a TV show where I was in a water tank for about 5 hours. And so I asked a lot of questions about my regulator and my air supply, and what are the signals if I suddenly run out of air, and because that particular costume I wore, I was glued and sewn into the costume, so there was no easy. We'll just rip the costume off of you. It's like I said, you're not wearing a bathing suit. So I would say just think of the worst case scenario that could happen.
And always ask like your stunt team like for advice or like.
I ask a lot of questions. I ask a lot of questions because I don't want anyone to assume that. I don't want anyone to assume that I know exactly what's all the variables that could happen. If this happens, what do I do? If that happens, what do I do? So ask a lot of questions. If you're not sure of something, ask. And I've always found, especially stunt people, are happy to let you know what's going on.
Yeah, because I wanted to ask all these questions before we wrapped up, because there's most likely people who watch this who say, oh, I want to be a stunt and suit performer, because they watch, like, for primarily our stuff is very catered to the Japanese kaiju genre, the Japanese hero genre. So I assume people are thinking, oh, I want to try this out myself. And I know, most people can assume, obviously, the health concerns are the suit might be too heavy for you. You should have good cardio. You should have a good body. Yeah. Studios will sometimes look over you if you're not the right height for the suit they're already ideally constructing for the props. And like you said, the health concerns, obviously, with water tanks. Water tanks are always, I've heard in Hollywood, water scenes, water tanks, anything with a water stunt, you always want to have the right type of stunt people, coordinators, and whatnot in case of emergency. Yeah. So they don't end up getting drowned and stuff like that.
Yes, and the one thing I did in a water tank like that, I had a fantastic stunt coordinator who was like watching me the whole time. He was above the tank watching me within reach. That's really important, obviously.
Mm. And there's no other things to really worry about when it comes to just doing this stuff, obviously. Like you said, just being aware of your surroundings and environment, like earlier, like you said, to make sure when you're in the suit, you don't slip and fall or hurt yourself. And like you said, just making sure you ask questions for all the supervisors there, I guess, that are making sure this goes off without a hit,
Right. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess for our last question, do you have any upcoming projects that you're able to freely talk about and promote, like a movie that's going to be in theaters, or a movie that's going to come on home video, or any convention appearances?
I have a movie that just came out in theaters called Consumed, and it's a scary movie. I have another movie that is in the pipeline. I don't think I'm allowed to talk about it yet. And then I have another thing where I'm working with a company, kind of a spokesperson kind of thing, but I can't talk about that yet either. Okay. So I have a movie out that was in theaters a month or so ago called Consumed. And that's really what's the next thing I have going on right now.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's always good to always ask, because usually we, on a good day, we get our interviews out within a month after recording them. So usually, when we say convention appearances, usually by the time the video comes out, someone's like, oh, my convention's in November. And so by the time we would release this, it would probably be right before the show. Sometimes there are delays. I'm just going to say this even on record. Sometimes there are delays. Like, we've had interviews where, just because of our schedules or due to health issues for me and my editors, they don't come out for maybe a month or two. We try to get them out as quickly as possible. Yeah. So I'm telling this to you and telling this on record, because there's been times where our chat's been like, wait, you recorded this in July but didn't get it out till the following spring, and that delay is usually because you'll send some actors will be like, oh, can I see the finished product, and then you send it to them, and then they don't see it because somehow it went to their spam for like 4 whole months, and you're trying to get a hold of them going,
Yes.
hey, we did like you asked. Could you tell us we could put out the interview, please? So those are just funny stories that have happened that I felt like telling you and putting it on record, because I always try to, I try to at least have some visibility, you know, behind the scenes stuff. I like you said, there's stuff that you can't talk about. And there's stuff that I try to explain because of my audience gets a little riled sometimes, because when you look at our YouTube channel, you'll see we have all these interviews, but like the scheduling is like 1 month, then the next one's like 3 months later. So it's
stuff comes up.
Yeah, stuff does come up. So it was a pleasure actually doing this interview with you. I really am glad we got to talk and know more about the '98 film. Like I said to you when we were talking, I was researching. I'm shocked that I either forgotten or I just missed a lot of these photos that I'll probably use in source when we're talking, like overlay, and show people at least an example of what we're talking about.
Okay.
But no, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Billy.
Do you have any social medias where people can contact you if they want to?
Yeah, my excuse me, my Instagram is at Kurt Carley 3000.
Okay.
And that's my Instagram, and of course my website. If you and a producer or someone needs to get in contact with me with my demo reel, all that stuff, it's kurtcarley.com.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for at least doing that, so our audience will know. It'll also be linked in the description below, as always. And as Hero Club faithful viewers know, you can always follow us across social media using Hero Club for Life. The website is obviously hero-club.com, because a weird nightclub in Asia had regular heroclub.com. Don't know. But that occurred. And other than that, I don't know when the next interview is going to be happening, but you can always watch our streams for news and other stuff on Twitch Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And other than that, we'll see you all next time for whoever is our guest. So see you all later. And thanks again, Mr. Kurt Carley, for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks, everybody.